Hi, my name's Jaelees, and this semester I decided to take Dr. Mercer's biomechanics for performance and endurance. I also took triathlon training. The reason why was because I really wanted to understand what was going on and thought that I could help apply it to my own training because I do want to do a triathlon eventually. Well, I've been inspired now and I'm going to do one at the end of the summer. But I know there are some things that I need to learn and some things that I need to understand. So specifically, I would like to know, what should my stroke rate be when I'm swimming? What should my cadence be when I'm cycling? And what should my stride rate be when I'm running? To learn these things, I figured that I'd take it to the computer and find out what kind of information I could see that's just out in the community. And after we look at that, we're going to go ahead and head up to the university and meet up with Jared and Eddie and see what we can actually learn that's based on research. Let's see what we can find.
If we take any major international swimming final, we will commonly see 8 different swimmers swimming with 8 subtly or even significantly different styles. And if you have an interest in triathlon, you're bound to have wondered why most of these elite triathletes swim with a completely different style to their pool counterparts. The question is then, how do these elite swimmers and triathletes make their stroke work for them? The lower the stroke count, supposedly the more efficient the stroke. Our common belief is that the most efficient swimmer is he or she who can take the least number of strokes. And yet, here is 2004 Olympic gold medalist Laura Manadou from France, competing in the women's 400 metre freestyle event. She is swimming with an average of 50 strokes per 50 metres, but with a massively high stroke rate of over 100 strokes per minute. Therefore, we can clearly say that efficiency in the water cannot be measured by the number of strokes you take per length by itself.
As you can see, Arturo has decided to go with a gear choice that complements his cadence. If he uses a gear that is too high, he will go too slowly. If he uses one that is too low, he will not get enough power from his cycling. The ideal way to choose your gear in cycling is to make sure it complements your desired cadence. In our case, you'd want to keep a cadence of 90 RPMs or above for 1 foot. Selecting your gear in this easy to follow and remember manner will help you become a more efficient cyclist.
Riding in the mountains is really all about technique, staying relaxed and being efficient. But what you've got to remember is there's no one technique which is going to work for every rider. So it is a little bit of experimentation. But really there isn't a right or a wrong. It's what really works for the rider. Everyone's different, everyone feels more comfortable in different positions. And really, you know, efficiency comes in the rider. It doesn't come in a technique or a look.
Hello, this is Todd from TT Bike Fit, and today we're going to talk about, not about bike fit, but about running style and running technique in Ironman and marathon. And all the hours I've spent out on the Queen K filming the athletes running, it's become clear to me that there are really 2 distinct running techniques that we see out there, and that, at least among the women, that we see runners who use both techniques at the top of the sport, putting down some of the fastest marathon times that have been seen in Ironman. So we can start off looking at Mirinda Carfrey here. Everyone knows she's a fantastic runner. She's done a 2:52 in Kona, has the fastest overall time run split recorded in Kona, and really she is a classic runner. Her style is the style that, you know, everyone talks about, everyone tries to emulate. If you look at the elite marathoners from Kenya, you'll see that this is basically the style that they use. The advantage of this running style is that the runner takes full advantage of the time in the air to increase the distance per stride. As opposed to the gazelle type of running style, which we just saw Mirinda Carfree exhibit, the gliders have a higher cadence style, much less vertical displacement, and much less flight time. So you'll notice that her feet are never very far from the ground. If you watch her lead foot, it's very close to the ground, only a few inches off, and the foot is well out in front of the center. If we look at the cadence, just compare these two runners, even though they're both running approximately a 2:52 marathon, Chrissy's cadence is around 96, 97, and Mirinda's is closer to 90. That's because she spends more time in the air.
Well, I've learned a lot from this, and I really think that it's helped me, but I definitely want to go up and talk to some of my fellow students and see what kind of research that we found and what they've been working on.
Four, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010.
We're just doing some concurrent training for our triathlon.
Oh wow, well I was hoping that we could actually meet up and talk about what we talked about in class. I need to know what race I should be doing as far as my running, biking, and swimming.
Absolutely. We can take a walk over here to the table and Jared can show you all mapped out on a piece of paper how to do it.
And then you'll help me translate that.
Absolutely. Let's do it!
What's the science behind choosing my optimal stroke rate?
Well, first, let's start off by defining stroke rate. Stroke rate is going to be the time between consecutive same side arm contacts inside of the water. So you can measure it from your left arm or your right arm. And the time in between your first left arm contact and your second left arm contact will be your stroke rate.
Okay.
And the second parameter you want to understand is stroke length. Now what this is just like with consecutive same side contacts like in stroke rate, it's simply the length of the contact from your first left arm contact or first right arm contact to your second left arm contact or second right arm contact.
Okay.
Now, when you combine these two, when you find the product of stroke rate and stroke length, you will get velocity. And that is going to be your velocity in the water. And that is your main concern when you're trying to have the optimal performance time in your triathlon.
Okay.
Okay?
I think I can understand a little.
Now, when you're trying to understand the forces behind a swimmer, I'll just draw the arrows right now. You're going to have four main forces. The first force is going to be the force of gravity. That is going to be pulling you towards the bottom of the pool or the body of water that you're swimming in. Then you're going to have the buoyancy force, and that is going to counteract the force of gravity. So that's what's going to keep you afloat. And then you're going to have the force of drag. And that is the amount your body resists to change its motion in the water. The fourth force is going to be the force of propulsion. And that is how you propel yourself through the water to overcome the force of drag to ultimately finish that part of the race. So you will always want your propulsive force to be greater than your force of drag. Now technically, your propulsive force is a drag force, but that isn't something you have to worry about. You want to optimize your propulsive force, which will be at your hands and at your feet, in order to overcome the overall drag force that is distributed over your entire body, though pictured here it's just at your head.
Okay. I think I understand a little bit now. Can you help me out with the cycling portion of this?
Sure. I started drawing out our little guy here to put it into some perspective. So you're going to have a lot of forces acting on you that's going to definitely have an impact on your cadence. Make sure you have an arrow helmet because that's really important. But anyway, depending on if you're on a slope, if you're going straight, you want to make sure that cadence is the same. So
all right. Wait. Let me get into this a little more detailed for you, all right? So
Okay.
what we're going to do is we're going to actually go over the point of optimal cadence and also how to achieve that optimal cadence while minimizing your resistive forces on the system while you're riding on any type of slope, okay? So, unlike with swimming, we're going to look for optimal cadence while trying to maintain that over the entirety of your ride. Now, the point of maintaining your optimal cadence, which is different for everyone. Some people have a very slow cadence, some people have a high cadence, some people like low resistance, some like high resistance, depending on the gears they use. Many professional triathletes prefer very, very different types of cadences. So that part is chosen by you and you don't even know it. So what we'll get into is power and work. Okay? Now work, the equation for work is the amount of force over a certain distance. Okay? So let's say you're riding for 52 miles, let's say. That is going to be your distance. And the amount of force you distribute over that distance is going to be multiplied by it, and you're going to come up with work. Now, you're going to take that answer you got, and you're going to put your work over your change in time, okay? Now, you're going to want to minimize your time to maximize your power output. Now, that is for your overall ride. If you want to look at different segments of your ride, you want to minimize the amount of work you're doing. You want to maximize the amount of work you're doing over a minimal time. That's where optimal cadence comes into play.
Okay.
So you want this number, your time, to be very small.
Okay.
And you want your work to be very high. Now, how you get your work high is by producing a high amount of force. And that is going to tie back into what is your optimal cadence, because it's going to be different than mine, it's going to be different than Eddie's, and it'll even be different than Dr. Mercer's.
So, kind of what the theme of this is that I need to find out what works best for me by training and finding out what my baseline is and just getting some starting numbers and knowing what I'm working with. All right, so what about the forces that are happening here?
Excellent question. Now, force will be determined partly by optimal cadence, but net force, which is going to be the sum of forces, all that is a sigma from the Greek alphabet. It just means the sum of forces. And in order to find out the sum of forces that we can plug into the work equation, you have to take into account all the forces that are acting on the rider's cycle system. Okay? So first, we'll do rolling resistance. Now, just like it sounds, it's the resistance that your wheels make with the ground, okay? Now, with gravity, we do have a downward force, just like in swimming, except we're not going to call it the force of gravity. We're going to call it the force of slope, okay? Now, the force of slope is just like the force of gravity, except you're taking into account the different levels you're riding at. So in this case, we're riding on a completely flat surface, so we're just going to leave it be. We're going to leave it there, okay? Now, you also have what we call air resistance. Now, do you recall from swimming how we have drag? That's the same thing. It's a different fluid, it's air instead of water, but it's resisting your movement. Same principle, different fluid, okay? Now, we're also going to have your, obviously, propulsive force. And that is going to be the force that you use to overcome all these resistances so you're able to move at a certain given velocity, okay? Now we do have one more resistance, and it's called bearing resistance. It's usually very minimal, so sometimes it's not taken into account. But it's the resistance of the actual bearings on your wheels while you're riding. And so we can actually point those this way and label that bearing resistance. And those are going to be the forces acting on the bike and cycle system.
All right then. And now I should probably learn a little something about my stride rate when I'm running. Okay, so now explain to me about my running.
All right, so there's two factors you're going to want to take in. The first is stride rate. Now, just like with swimming, it's going to be consecutive same side foot contacts with the ground per minute. Okay, so you can either do your left foot or your right foot, doesn't matter. So it's going to be the time it takes for one foot to contact, it's going to be the time it takes for your left or right foot to it's going to be the time from first contact of your left or right foot to the second contact of your left or right foot. That is your stride rate. Okay, now alright, now we have our second parameter. It's stride length. Now stride length, just like with swimming with stroke length, is going to be the distance from consecutive same side foot contacts. Okay, so the distance between your first left foot contact to your second left foot contact, or your first right foot contact to your second right foot contact. Now when you take the product of these two parameters, stroke rate, stride rate, times stride length, you're going to have velocity, just like in swimming when you had stroke rate and stroke length. Now, to optimize velocity, you have to take into account what we call ground reaction force, okay? Now, with ground reaction force, we have the curve with two peaks, okay?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Cross this out. I'm a triathlon coach. I'm just going to put this into physical terms. I have a stride length of 320. I'm going to go on a quick 10-mile run. I'll be right back. All right. Woo. Do you get it now?
Oh my
Does that make
God,
sense?
that was so impressive.
I told you 320 stride rate.
I am
I'm
enrolling.
barely out of breath.
Oh my God, I have to enroll in the class again next semester. I can't even believe it.
Yeah,
It's so
forget
impressive.
Forget that stuff. Just work with a trainer. You got it. Concurrent training. That's what it's about.
Proof right there.
Proof
Amazing.
right there, right there.
Amazing.
My take-home message in all of this is you got to know a little bit of the science, but for everyone else, go to the people who know what's going on. It's definitely going to help you. Get a trainer and talk to someone who knows what's really going on behind the scenes.